Sam.
What a week.
what a week. I am
What a week.
Shattered. I'm absolutely shattered, but fulfilled.
I'm smiling from ear to ear. I've had the most amazing week. I am so tired, and I can't tell if I'm excited or nervous that it's not stopping.
Yeah.
This wasn't a one-off. It's happening this week.
No, I'm delighted. At the end of the Star Beast, I was thinking like, oh my gosh, like the come down from this is going to be horrific. Like I'm going to feel so low on Sunday now it's all over. And then I'm like, but it's not all over. Like I forgot, like there's 2 more, then there's Christmas. So it's really not all over. But in my head, I'm so used to us getting like a tiny nibble, then months off air, then a tiny nibble, then a year off air. And I'm shocked that we're back to kind of like weekly viewing, even just for 3 weeks is weird.
It's so weird prepping for an episode of Wholala, for an episode that has just come out, especially one that features some of our favourite characters. Like, it's wild to me.
Yeah, it's been a huge week. We had the Gallifrey Cabaret on Wednesday night. That was a real bumper edition, and we've done, I'd say a little video, but it's a good 5-minute video, and it was just a hit after hit after hit after hit. It was incredible, and we had so many great little cameos. We had, in real life, Katie Manning. We had Bonnie Langford record a little video. We had Georgia Tennant record a little video, and then the video was Russell T Davies and the scream that went up in the room. You can see it at Wholala Pod. We put it on our X account. We've put it on our Instagram account. You can go and watch. The reaction was seismic because for Reese and Carrot, who are the creators and organisers of the Gallifrey Cabaret, I think like our one wish for them, because they are such true superstars,
such gems.
Knowing them is like, it feels like celebrities because they just have, they
Honestly.
radiate star power. Like they feel like people who should be famous.
Yeah.
They are just so immensely talented and special people.
It was just such an amazing night. Seeing all the different performers. Some of my favourites, there's a drag queen called Her who did a Jackie Tyler number.
Yes.
That was incredible. There was also an act who did the whole thing as The Wire. And again, as always, I keep saying our partners aren't Doctor Who fans and aren't really aware of it. They are very quickly becoming aware because of having us two with them. But trying to like softly explain to them why this person dressed as The Wire with a mic going, "Can I get a feed me?" and all of the gays going, "Feed me." Why that's so funny to their blank faces was really entertaining to me.
That was so funny. The Wire kept like going to the audience like, "What's your name?" "Sarah." "Well, it doesn't matter, Sarah, because I'm gonna eat you." And I was like, yeah. It was just I mean, all of it was really special. And then so we had that. Then we had Bargain Hunt Day, which was surreal. And we saw ourselves, well, I saw myself and my sister on BBC One doing Bargain Hunt. I was so nervous when it was on. I was like, I had adrenaline going all the way through my body. I could feel it in my fingers and toes.
You.
I was so nervous. And it was really funny because my sister kept screenshotting me hate comments from Twitter, which weren't from like Doctor Who fans. They were from like...
They were just Bargain Hunt fans.
They were the Bargain Hunt fans. They hated it. Regular Bargain Hunt fans were like, who are these two? And there was this one guy who, from his profile picture, is like in his 70s, and his first tweet was like, "Some very annoying haircuts on Bargain Hunt this week." And they did a follow-up one, and it was like, "Annoying voices too." And it was like, oh, and I'm not done yet. Came back for another tweet. There was someone else was like, "Oh, like terrible purchases from the blue team. Oh, they've got no idea what they're doing." And then later followed up with, "I admit I was wrong." And it was like, made a profit.
Oh my God.
Got the golden gavel.
It was so good. It was so funny. And then in the evening, we had the Daleks colorization, which was a whole... I thought that was amazing. It's very divisive online where there's some real purists of classic Doctor Who where they're like, they cut it down by like half the length. They cut out these characters. They did this, they did that. There's a montage in there, which I just think is the campest thing. I agree it is very quickly paced, but it's like going through their plan, and Susan like fakes freaking out and has like a quick wink to camera to this like heist music, which is very like 60s inspired.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was the campest thing. I think it was really well cut together for someone who isn't going to sit and watch, because it's 7 episodes. It's about 3 hours long if you're going to watch the entire story. Yeah. And I just think it was a lot more digestible. And the thing is, it's right there next to the original Daleks on iPlayer. You can watch the original if you want. But
just watch the original one.
I just thought it was so fun. I can't wait. There was a gorgeous trailer like coming up at the end of it where they did like a supercut of the rest of William Hartnell's era going into Patrick Troughton's, and that it colorized as well. And that was just fantastic.
That was fantastic. Excellent word. It was so much more than I thought it would be. I think I was expecting, literally like a chopped down and coloured version of the Daleks. I didn't expect they would manage to add so much character to it. It felt like wherever they kind of inserted a bit of soundtrack and they made these really creative choices with the colour as well. It wasn't like just a literal colorization. There was a lot of like real stylistic choice in there as well. It felt like it all really helped communicate like, this is what the intention was with this. This is one way you can read this scene. And that made it really interesting for me.
Yeah, and there were nice ways that they brought in modern elements without feeling like they were changing it too much. So they added a score, but it wasn't like they just slapped a Murray Gold soundtrack on there. It was like to the theme. But then they added like the exterminator blasts for the Daleks and some eye stalk shots that were like kind of emblematic of the new ones. And when the Dalek's head would turn, they'd add like little noises, like a little...
Yeah, that was fantastic. That was a treat. Friday, we got a brief break. And at that point, I was starting to feel a bit insane because Doctor Who had sort of been the thing like stuck on loop in my head for so long that it was beginning to feel like ruminating. Like I was like, I'm actually like stuck on Doctor Who. I need to like actually now consume some other media or just like touch grass for a minute because I'm starting to feel weird. And then the event was obviously the screening for the Star Beast and a bit of a manic day, kind of getting ready for it, hosting for it, having people over, which I've always wanted to do. I mean, the event, we built up to it. We made some really lovely snacks. You made Meep cupcakes, which were beautiful. We had little adipose marshmallows.
We had oud marshmallows.
Oud marshmallows as well with strawberry lace mouths. We had sonic screwdriver. I don't know what it was. I mean, I'd say cocktails, but you made like a mixing bowl's worth.
Well, it was cocktails, but then you were like, should we just have it like a punch bowl and people can serve themselves?
Really
and I was
strong.
like, sure, which was definitely the way to go. It was very strong. It was strawberry vodka, which is blue, mixed with cloudy lemonade and blue curacao. I'm not going to gatekeep the recipe. You can make them at home. I'd love to see your photos. And you had gloriously bought all these glasses and cups and stuck Doctor Who stickers on them all so everyone could choose which one they would have, which actually was really good because everyone kept asking.
It was really helpful. It helped people find their cups.
Yeah.
We're not going to get into the whole episode recap right now, but what I will say is the experience of watching Doctor Who with friends, and I feel so lucky that I've been able to make friends through Doctor Who in the last year, has just been the most like magical thing. To meet people who love this show as much as we do, it's just such a gift. You sitting next to me just like I was gripping your arm at
we
some
were
point,
clinging to each other.
Euphoric, that's what it was.
Great.
Like it was one of those like it was like a spiritual experience. It was so surreal being there and like just being in a room with people having like a shared love of something like that was really, really amazing. And like knowing that it was a true live experience that everyone was having together was I don't know, something really nice about that. I loved it. So what we're going to do for now is we're going to do a little bit of context about the episode. We're going to do a recap of the story. And then because we don't want to be the only ones telling you what we thought of the episode, we've also asked some of you what you thought.
Exactly. So the Star Beast aired just the other day. It's so weird doing one so recent.
This is so weird.
It's so weird. On the 25th of November 2023, less than a week ago. I can't believe we're not talking about a 15-year-old episode. The overnight viewing figures were 5.08 million, which the Radio Times reported was the biggest drama launch of 2023, which I think is a massive feat given that it's November. I don't want that to be like understated.
Yeah.
It currently has an IMDb score of 7.8 out of 10, and we don't normally talk about this, but we wanted to give the Letterboxd score as well, which is a 3.7 out of 5.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one with viewing figures, and it really proves a point that a lot of people have been making for a long time about the way that we consume television. So a lot of people wanted to point to viewing figures for Chibnall episodes and said, well, there you have it. You know, people don't watch Doctor Who anymore. It's dead. And this shows that, you know, a lot has also changed in terms of the way that we consume television. So obviously a lot of people don't watch TV overnight. If you look at the viewing figures on the same night for Strictly Come Dancing, it is massive. It's like, you know, 7-8 million. And the reason for that is like you have an audience who religiously watch shows live, like Strictly Come Dancing, would not watch it on catch up. And I'm sure the consolidated viewing figures would be really interesting for Doctor Who when we get then we get a 7-day and then we get like a 30-day figure or something like that. And that's like the final figure. But it was the biggest Doctor Who overnight figure since the 2019 New Year's special resolution. Yeah, biggest drama launch of the year.
Wild, amazing. Well, look, we're not going to hold you back any further. If you haven't watched the episode yet, please, I implore you, go on iPlayer. It's in glorious 4K, which is amazing. But if you have already seen it and you perhaps want a refresher, here's a quick recap of the story.
The story begins with the 14th Doctor recalling the adventures he once had with Donna Noble. After she absorbed a Time Lord's consciousness in their last adventure together, he had to wipe her memories of him to save her life. Donna tells us that she knows something is missing from her life.
In present-day London, the Doctor bumps into Donna, who doesn't recognise him. She's with Rose, her teenage daughter. A spaceship crashes in the sky above them, which Donna completely misses. Donna and Rose head off together, and Sean Temple, Donna's husband, arrives in his taxi. The Doctor persuades Sean to take him to the crash site, asking about Donna on the way, claiming to be a friend of Nerys.
At the crash site, the Doctor meets Unit's new scientific advisor, Shirley Ann Bingham. She sends a squad of soldiers to secure whatever's inside the ship. Inside is a glowing light that appears to possess them. The Doctor leaves to explore the escape pod.
On the way home, Rose is harassed by boys who call her by her dead name, leaving Donna furious. Sylvia, Donna's mum, is desperate to prevent Donna from remembering the Doctor and says there's no such thing as a spaceship. Outside, Rose has discovered a creature named the Meep and shelters them. Donna discovers the Meep, yelling in horror that there's a bloody Martian in the shed.
Silver is horrified and insists that everyone is hallucinating. Even worse, the Doctor has appeared at the front door. The Doctor and the Noble family discuss what to do with the Meep, who claims that Meep kind are hunted for their fur by the Wrath Warriors.
Soon, the soldiers are on the scene, and the family is caught in the crossfire between the Wrath Warriors unit and the possessed soldiers working for the Meep. The family escape, and after a short trial in an underground car park, realise that the Meep is evil. Back at the crash site, the Doctor realises that the Meep ship has catastrophic potential to destroy London when it takes off. Shirley helped the Nobles escape, but Donna stays to follow the Doctor, using his name for the first time.
The Doctor begins to deactivate the ship, but the control room is split in half by the Meep. With Donna trapped on one side, the only way to save London is to reactivate the Doctor Donna, who will have the knowledge to use the controls. Donna agrees to sacrifice herself, understanding that this solution will kill her.
The Doctor Donna regains her memories and reverses the ignition, and to everyone's shock, doesn't die. It's revealed that Rose has absorbed some of the metacrisis when she was born, and as Donna's mental block fell away, helped dilute and slow the damage of the metacrisis.
With the Meep captured, Rose and Donna choose to release the knowledge of a Time Lord, allowing Donna to retain her memories and take one last trip in the TARDIS with her best friend to visit Wilf. However, chaos soon ensues when Donna does it again and pours a cup of coffee on the console, causing the newly redesigned TARDIS to burst into flames and take off.
So who's the boss?
Where in time and space are Donna and the Doctor about to land?
Why did Donna spill her coffee?
And why did this face come back?
To say goodbye.
Woohoo! Okay, what a recap. There was a lot in there, guys. Well done for sticking with it. Should we listen to some listeners' thoughts before we give our own?
Absolutely. Look, it's going to be a lot of us chatting on this episode. We wanted to make sure we heard from you. So we reached out to you on our Twitter/X and Instagram account and asked for your thoughts. And here's what some of you had to say. We've had this voice note sent in to us from Liam Rice.
So I also absolutely loved it. I would also give it a 10 out of 10. Although I have like small critiques, they're not or haven't taken away my overall feeling of the episode, which was obviously just fun, full of love, laughter, loved it. It was great. The title sequence, love, I think arguably my favourite yet, ? I thought that was really well done. I think the dynamic for me between Donna and her family was what I missed about Doctor Who, not specifically Donna and her family, but the family dynamics. I think having that back and just bringing the character of the companion in the episode, whoever that may be, a bit more full circle. So I really enjoyed having Sylvia and introducing Rose. I thought Rose's kind of storyline was not only, it was slightly on the nose for me, but there were moments that were questionable in terms of being a bit silly, but that's what kind of Doctor Who is. I was kind of wondering what the plot would be around Donna, and the fact they made it around Rose and her storyline and linked it together to solve the issue that was obviously Donna losing her memories. I thought that was really fun. I'm really glad that we have Donna back, at least for now. I am slightly worried about the future of the next couple of episodes. Obviously, Meep Meep saying about his boss, and we know that the toy maker's coming back. I got weird vibes around Donna at the end when she threw the coffee on the console. Although that's very Donna, it was very much like, is something else at play here? What's going on?
Very interesting.
Very interesting. I get what you mean there. I think it's a very Donna thing to be clumsy, but that was...
Donna chucked that coffee, and either that was like a very well-delivered comedy bit, or there's something afoot.
Yeah, exactly. And even things like, the TARDIS has faced a bashing on more than one occasion. Having a cup of coffee spilt over a brand new TARDIS console, I don't know. I think I've got laptops that would survive that. So
And erupt into flame like that, huh?
But no, I agree with you on so much. I think the companion family dynamic is definitely something that I've missed in Doctor Who. I know that we got to know, like, for example, Yaz and Ryan's family, but it just didn't feel like it was in the same way. And certainly, I think in Stephen Moffat's era, it suffered from, like, Amy's parents barely being in it at all, Clara's family sort of dipping very loosely in and out. I think having time to really spend with the companions' family and flesh them out as characters really does benefit the story.
Absolutely.
So we've got one more voice note, which was sent in from Brad.
One of the things, like, I instantly noticed was how strong the dialogue was. Like, everything is sharp and witty and quick. And that was my main takeaway. And the writing, I thought, was really compelling. And one of the things Russell T Davies does really well is humour in Doctor Who. Standout moment for me in the episode was Sylvia's interaction with David Tennant. I thought it was so funny.
Oh, completely agree with Sylvia. I love the scene where she turns around and sees the Doctor knocking, and she's like, "You."
There's an edit on Twitter where someone's put the Prowler theme from Spider-Man over Sylvia. There's so much there as well about, like, Jacqueline King earned her cash in these 11 steps, and it was so good. I agree. The humor is always on point. I think the jokes tend 9 out of 10 times to land really well. And that is something that I really, really loved about this story. It made me laugh a lot in the right places. Let me tell you something about a suit that tight. You can wear it up to the age of 35.
And no further.
Said with, like, genuine concern, like, let me tell you something.
I'm telling this for your benefit.
For your benefit. Let me say this now. Right, here we go. So if you're new to Wholala, we talk about our highs and lows, and that doesn't capture everything, so we've had to add in some mixed points or neutral points as well, which isn't quite so snappy. So we'll go semi-chronologically, and I'll open with a high for me is the brand new titles. I remember this came on, and I wish I'd almost recorded some reactions in the room so that I could segment this in, but I was just too distracted by the whole thing going on. And I was dazzled by the new titles, and every time they see them come off my phone, I want to watch it again. I love the way that the TARDIS kind of, like, surfs the vortex, and it kind of skates and flips and spins from side to side. The way it drops down, we get a top-down perspective. The way the vortex also looks like it's got, a bit like the Jodie era really, all these different branching tunnels going off in different directions. Like, it's a terrifying place you could get lost, in the way that there's all these, like, multicolored mists and swirls, and it feels like, you know, something you could reach out and kind of wave your hand through. But it was really cool. The one flop, the caveat for me, where everyone went, was when the 60th diamond logo kind of span.
Oh my God, in the viewing party, there was just like a collaborative, like, it
was really funny because everyone was going, yeah, whoa, oh my God, oh. And everyone went, oh, together at the same point when the logo span in. So that was a pretty unanimous feeling that was a bit of a flop.
Yeah. I've got that in my mixed section for the title sequence, because I go with you. Visuals, adore. I love the colour palette they've chosen. I love it's like cloudy, misty, ethereal. I saw a few people online saying that they didn't like that there were cuts in it, because it's always been like you're following the TARDIS, but I love the cuts. I really liked it. I love watching, like, the bottom of the TARDIS brush against the mist. One thing that I didn't like about it is that the text of, like, the names and the title itself, they're not in sync to the theme, like how it's ever been. There's certain beats where you know the name's going to come in, certain beats where you know the title's going to come in, and it felt a bit to me like they had timed the sequence, because I can imagine that, like, they might not have gotten the theme until fairly recently, and a title sequence like this would take a while to animate. It felt like they were, like, timing it to a different theme, and then they got brought this one and it didn't quite sync up. There are also some weird technical errors. I know that the ends on David Tennant and stuff, like, were a bit buggy. Again, that's nitpicky. To a naked eye you wouldn't even notice, but I do wonder if, like, maybe they had hoped that they had more time or something to spend on it. But overall, loved it. It was beautiful. Loved the theme. I think that the theme sounds so much better than the orchestra version, just with the titles.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, loved it overall. Well, anyway, to jump straight into the episode itself, Donna's just missing it all again. She just keeps missing it.
She missed it all again, and the consistency of that as well. Just so, what does he say? Like, I don't think that's a da-da-da. What does he say?
They say there's a plane crashing. It's like, I don't think that's a plane. It's a spaceship in distress.
Yeah. And Donna immediately deciding to kind of blabber on about, like, he stacked this wrong. I'll show him how to stack boxes, and completely turning the other way. I really, really enjoyed that. Donna missing it all again.
Yeah.
It didn't need to be called out in the way that Rose goes, like, Mom, why do you always miss it? I was thinking, like, no. You don't need to spell it out.
I know.
But I did enjoy that she missed it.
It was just like a fun call, but I mean, like in the very first episode we meet her, you know, she missed the Sycrat ship because she was hungover. She missed the Battle of Canary Wharf because she was scuba diving in Spain. Like she's always missing stuff. And then they double down it again later. I agree with you. I don't think she needs to point out because then when Sylvia was asked, like, oh, did you see it? She's like, you know me, always missing everything. Like it's like, okay, we get it.
Yeah, we get it. Yeah. But with that as well, the outdoor filming in Camden, I really liked. I liked how it looked on screen, but I also just liked the kind of experience of it for fans. It was nice that it felt like we got like let in on it, and I like the way they talk about it as well. And the commentary is interesting because obviously, as I say, you've got two producers there talking about it, and they said, you know, well, there was some nervousness there because they said the sheer number of people who turned up was a bit alarming because they were like, oh, you know, could this either disrupt the filming or like is it a bit of a risk in terms of like just crowd control, basically, the number of people who've turned up. And they said like everyone was so well behaved. When they said be quiet, everyone was quiet. They were very respectful. People just wanted to like, you know, experience it. And they said it was actually nice for us because it felt like we were like doing it live.
A bit like theatre.
Yeah, and they were like, it's just cool that like they were like kind of like there for the filming. Like that never happens that the fans get to be a part of that. So that was kind of cool. Yeah,
one of the people at our viewing party was there and he was watching. He was like, oh my God, I was there for that bit. Oh my God, I saw when they were filming this. I saw the wind machines. And I just think that's such a special thing to have. Like, I remember even though I wasn't there, seeing all the filming photos in Cardiff, like live on Twitter when people put, oh my God, I've just seen Sylvia, because it was before they'd announced half the characters. And they were like, oh my God, obviously he's not in this episode. They're like, I've just seen Bernard Cribbins. Like, it felt very communal. And it's nice as well because we live in London that it's a place where we can go. And we did go the day before the Star Beast. We went to Camden. So when we were watching, we were like, oh my God, we were just up those stairs yesterday.
Yeah. It's nice just like having places you can go that you recognise. I suppose that's how it feels all the time if you live in Wales.
Exactly. If only we lived in Wales.
I was astonished by how much of it was set because the sets were so good. There was a note in this that Vicky makes as well in the commentary, and she said the art department were very proud of the stairs because they've got like clutter on them. They've got like stuff that family would leave on a stairs. And Phil says that's a Russell thing. Stairs must always have things on them, like in life. And it's interesting. It ties in with a tweet I saw the other day as well about a similar thing. Someone was showing kind of screen caps of companions' bedrooms through series 1 to 4, and they were like, "I know these rooms. Like I've been the person in these rooms. Like this is a friend's room. This is like a lived-in space that reminds me of somewhere." And they feel like believable spaces. They're a little bit messy. There's disjointed colors. You know, like it's my place. I know that place, and I thought it was a really nice little touch.
No, it's so cool. Talking about the Noble household, I wanted to touch on the family. A bit like Liam said, I'm so happy whenever I see a real family dynamic, and I'm going to lean on my nostalgia here. I do think that I've had a few days to kind of like ponder on my thoughts. I don't think that my review is going to be completely nostalgia based, but getting back to the Noble family, it just really felt comforting. It was so sweet, and specifically getting to see Sylvia again. I love Sylvia as a character, and I love what they've done with her in this, because we, especially watching some of Series 4 for Wholala, have sort of realised that she truly didn't treat Donna well, and a lot of Donna's confidence issues come from how Sylvia treated her. And I think that after knowing that Donna could die with the meta crisis, Sylvia, I think it really hit home when she was like, she still is, she's my daughter, and the doctor said, well, then why don't you tell her that sometimes?
Yeah,
I think that really hit home, because you can tell that she's really trying to just be like, you know, she doesn't live with Donna anymore, but she's still there in the evening cooking her a dinner, and Donna's like, I don't need you to do this. That tuna madras.
Well, apparently it's a staple in the Russell T Davies household.
I heard. Yeah, no, exactly. I wouldn't be a staple in my household, but I'm happy with that. And yeah, the scene where the doctor is coming in, she's just flapping about like, what do you mean spaceships aren't real? And
you didn't see anything.
You didn't see anything. Yeah. when Meep is on Donna's leg and she's like, it's not real. She's like, it's not real. It's clinging to my left leg.
I love that. It's like the totally transparentness of her keeping a secret. It's so obvious. It's so like, you didn't see anything, did you? Spaceships, they're not real, are they? And it's like, Granddad used to speak about spaceships, and then he stopped.
It was so tender when we were watching it, and when she was going on about how Granddad used to go on about spaceships, and then he suddenly stopped him when Sylvia just said, well, you had a bit of a breakdown, love. There's no real secret. And Donna believed for 15 years that she just had a breakdown.
That was so devastating. I read that in Doctor Who magazine, the last one, and I said to you, I was like, there's something in here in the way that Catherine Tate is describing Donna. And I feel like it's a bit spoilery. And it was that reveal about like, well, Donna thinks she had a breakdown. And I was like, that is devastating. That like for 15 years, she just thought she had like a mental break and she doesn't remember what happened like from her wedding onwards. No one does. Like it's yeah, really, really, really sad. But yeah, there's that sense I think from Sylvia of like a real and consistent concern for Donna, which is really, really lovely. Like it makes sense, of course, that there's been that change since the last time we saw her. But it feels like a really believable, caring, like mother-daughter relationship as well between them.
There's that really funny line where Donna's going on about how much she loves her daughter, and she's like, you realise how lucky you are to have a beautiful, amazing daughter. Right, Mum?
Right, Mum?
And Sylvia's like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So funny.
Speaking of a certain space rat, I think it's time for us to talk about the Meep.
I think it's time to talk about the Meep.
Oh, look at his horrible little face. What a menace. Did any of us believe he was a sweetheart, or did we know all along?
He was the best guy around. What about the people he murdered? What murder?
What murder? I think first thing to say is like the look of the Meep is astonishing. It was designed as a physical costume by Millennium FX. They've had loads of involvement with Doctor Who from Series 1, 2005, all the way through to Series 12. Bit of a break. I'm not sure what the reasoning really is, but they weren't involved in the Flux, and they are back again now. And then that animatronic, they had 3 Meep heads, and untold VFX added blinking and mouth movements, and they mapped that onto the performance of Miriam Margolyes. And Miriam Margolyes inspired casting for the Meep.
Amazing. It was such good casting. Everyone's been saying that they're so sad they couldn't see her swear because, or well done as well to Russell for reining her in so that she wasn't swearing on screen. It was inspired casting for the Meep. It was such a good Meep. I was walking around the whole rest of the day being like, do you want to be my friend? I've got some little friends.
Oh, you ripped his tummy out.
And then when she changed, she was like, oh, to hell with this Exhibit C.
Oh, to hell with this.
It was so good. One thing that we were talking about with this new era of Doctor Who is that we really want it to have a real cultural relevancy, because I think it has definitely had that at points and then dipped and maybe not had it at other points. And I saw online, someone sent it to me earlier, that, in the Tube, they have those posters where they say maybe like, Happy Mother's Day or Happy Easter or whatever. It was one of those, and all it said was, all hail the Meep. And the fact that that's now on the Underground, I'm just like it's a win for the Whovians.
The moment that got a real laugh as well was when the Meep is carried around the corner of these like steelworks, like on a Meep throne that kind of like resembles like the Iron Throne. One of them, oh hail the Meep, all hail the Meep.
Hail the Meep.
I really, really enjoyed that.
That got a good laugh at the viewing party as well. And I want to talk about the Wrath Warriors as well, because they were really good too. They were a nice mix of practical and VFX. I thought that the costumes on those kind of like stilts were great. It's also really funny because we all kind of saw the twist coming that the Meep was going to be evil, but I didn't quite expect the Wrath Warriors to be so like, well, hello, sir. Yes, I am Soldier. Yes, and I'm just here to help. And it was
so polite.
They were so polite. And there's a scene in Unleashed where they're like, oh, we're very excited to do this. I'm Simon, and there's Gary over there. And it pans, and he's in the meeting, and he's like, hello, and he just waves.
I love whenever we see Doctor Who performers behind the scenes, and it's just like some nice like dad of 2 who's getting into his costume at the start of the day. He's strapping himself into the costume. So that's always like one of the best behind the scenes bits. That's what we've been sorely missing. Thank God we have Unleashed back. Shirley and Bingham. I always love our scientific advisors. I loved Malcolm. I loved Osgood. Yeah. I like that they always really revere the Doctor. And I really like in this that she lets him get away with his way of working.
Yeah, I was going to say, I love that in this, she does kind of flips on his head, because like you said, they always love the Doctor, always obsessed with the Doctor, and he kind of has that moment where he's like, waited your whole life? And she's like, you wish, I'm going to get a pay rise just for meeting you. Like, she is so unfazed by it, and I thought that was really, really funny.
As much as I did like Osgood, I think it's a nice change as well from someone who's like fangirling for the Doctor, and maybe that was a bit of like a product of its time as well, like being like a fangirl, and especially like jazzing them up as like a nerd glasses plus inhaler plus like big long scarf and bow tie. And I think this time it's just someone who like really holds their own, and also just really cool that we've got this representation for a wheelchair user in a leading role and with a really great character. And I really like Ruth Madley as well. I've seen her in years and years, and she was stellar in that as well. I like her accent.
Yeah, no, I like her accent. I like that she is just completely cool, calm, collected at all times. She's not phased. One thing that I thought was really, really cool is that Unit know the Doctor's future, and I'd never really thought about this before, but the Doctor visits Unit all the time. So they see different versions of the Doctor, and so when she first sees 14, she assumes it's the 10th Doctor, and he says about, being a woman and being this and doing that, and she's like, but you can't know that, that's your future. And she's really taken aback by it, and I just think that that's really cool and something I've never properly considered before, that they probably see the Doctor out of order sometimes, so they then know his future or her future or their future.
She doesn't even say it in that way. I think she says it's forbidden, which I thought was interesting.
She does.
And that feels like it's almost like on the Doctor's instructions, like, you are not to tell me about my future, was interesting.
Exactly. One thing that a Wholala listener actually sent to us, which I thought was a gag, justice for Liz Shaw. Liz Shaw was scientific advisor number 1. The Doctor goes, I was scientific advisor number 1. But as we know from our Spearhead in Space episode in Series 2 of Wholala, Liz Shaw is brought on as the first scientific advisor of Unit, and then the Doctor comes on afterwards and joins as scientific advisor. So Liz Shaw really was scientific advisor number 1.
Well, that's a bit of a shame, then, that they almost took that off Liz.
I agree.
We keep talking about Liz Erasure because poor Liz.
Honestly, justice for Liz.
We watched A Spearhead in Space, and I was like, who is this? Like, she's wonderful. But I don't think that she's been like really referred to very much at all in the new series, which is so strange to me because she is like spiritually the predecessor of Kate Lethbridge Stewart, but doesn't almost like seem to like get that that credit. So David Tennant stepping into the role of the Doctor, it's obviously just like, second nature. He just so embodies the Doctor for so many people in every way that he plays it. But there is something a bit different this time. There's a sense of carrying a bit more wisdom and a bit more age this time. And some people, what I've really enjoyed that we could do, have been picking out like, oh, that moment was a bit 13 coded. Oh, that moment was a bit how 11 might say it. Oh, the 14th Doctor wouldn't have said that before, like, oh, the 10th Doctor wouldn't have said I loved her, or those kind of things. So there's a bit of like vulnerability, wisdom, age, and the way David talked about it was saying, I'm older now as well, and it also comes through that filter, even if I was trying to play the same character.
No, exactly. One thing that I really, really love about the 14th Doctor's portrayal, which is so different from the 10th, is that I never really realised it until we were doing Wholala and properly like assessing the character. The 10th Doctor always has so much baggage, like they can never tell anyone really how they feel about them. He doesn't ever tell Martha or Donna, or certainly not Rose, truly how he feels. He's just come off the back of losing the Time Lords. He's the last of the Time Lords. His whole role, even though he's quite a fun character at times, he is a very weighty role, and everything he says is quite like serious and has real thought behind it. And I think that the 14th Doctor can kind of allow themselves, especially after having been people like 11 and 13, to just have fun and be silly and also vocal about who they love and not afraid to talk about it. And he says about how much he loves Wilf and how much he loves Donna. And then when they're in the TARDIS and Donna's like, it's gorgeous, and he does that like little dance where he's like, wow. It's just so sweet. And I don't think that the 10th Doctor would have done that.
He carries a little bit more, I think, of like a feminine energy within him. I don't know if that's the right way to describe what it is, but it feels like there's a willingness to like let these little quirks shine out a bit more in a way that was maybe a bit more restrained with the 10th Doctor, because the 10th Doctor in everything tried very hard to be cool, and there are definitely moments in this where you still see that. I feel like when you have the Doctor kind of like projecting his little screen with a Sonic and he's kind of arms crossed in the corner kind of checking out the stats, he's still trying to be, oh, I'm a cool Doctor, but there's moments in this that definitely feel more emotional, which are really, really nice and more emotionally vulnerable. Talking about Wilf, for example, when we get to that moment, and it's like, of course, he wasn't a young man, and I love that man, and it was like, whoa, like this is a level of honesty suddenly,
and then Donna being like, he's not dead,
you idiot,
you Dumbo, great big out space dunce.
And the physicality that David Tennant can bring to the role as well, I think, is always wonderful. Someone tweeted something like, his whole face is committed to this role. And I was like, yes, that's what it really is. That's what it is.
I love David Tennant's Doctor, and it genuinely just brings me so much joy to be able to say, last week we watched David Tennant and Catherine Tate on Doctor Who, and this Saturday I'm going to watch them on it again. And the next Saturday I'm going to watch it again. Like, exactly.
And then I'm going to sob. But then Shooty will be here, so I'll be all right. So it'll be okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So there was a few little callbacks to like the Donnaverse that I really liked. Wilf is obviously one. Another one is the Neris references. The cheer we let out when it was like, oh, I'm Neris's friend. And it was, oh, like that, right, there's a friend. And then it's sort of leading to, how is she? She's fine after the accident. Oh, yeah, well, she's getting better.
She's not fine.
If it's her fault, she's been fined.
It was so funny. And then when Donna finds out and they're like, oh, yeah, I'm a friend of, what was it? Neris. Yeah, no, Neris. And she's like, Neris. Well, that explains everything.
And it was like, did I tell you I saw Susie Mare? She's looking a lot better. Shorter, obviously.
No, not obviously. Why is she shorter?
Let me tell you about one thing about Susie Mare. Susie Mare wouldn't lie
Not
unless it's about calories. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, I loved all those references. For me, the little bits that really sort of stabbed me in my heart in like a really good way are the moments before Donna gets her memories back, where she like remembers without realizing she's remembered.
Oh, yes.
So when she's in the truck and the doctor's like, "Why did you give away all your money?" And she says, people need help and this and that. And the other. Then she goes, "I don't know, it just felt like something you'd do." And she didn't even realize she'd said it.
Yeah.
And Sylvia kind of looks at the doctor and the doctor looks at her. And then later when Donna makes the decision, even again before she's got her memories back, to say goodbye to her family because the doctor needs her and she knows she needs to be with the doctor. And they're like, what are you doing? What are you doing? She's like, the doctor's in trouble and I need to help. And she runs away and you just sort of hold on Sylvia and she goes, she called him doctor.
Yeah.
Like, we were kind of clinging each other. Oh,
I much, much, much preferred this like trickle. And I think the thing, she said that in the lorry. It seemed like something he would do. And there's a bit of ambiguity to like, who's he? But it's, it's the doctor. And then it was the watching the doctor running down the corridor. That was the thing that was like, that's the doctor. And then the chills of she called him doctor and unlocking her memories, like bringing down the firewall with that code, that gave me chills as well. Westerly, Pelican, dreams. She's like, oh, get on with it. And, he doesn't have to say, I'm doing it. He just keeps going.
It really reminded me of the Winter Soldier, like the code to unlock the Winter Soldier. It was really giving me that. And I don't know if you, dear listener, was watching this with other people, but when she holds up the hands and goes, binary, but like we as a collective were losing
it was unreal. The weight of that moment was shocking. Like the way it made you feel was shocking. And then for me, I think the best part of this episode, potentially, well, actually no, maybe one of a couple of the best bits of the episode, when the Dr. Donna is back and the first thing the Dr. Donna does after this little burst of regeneration energy is flick the bangs like part them again. It's like, I gave away all my money trying to be like you, and just like furious, like 166 million pounds. That was so good.
But you can't underplay the regeneration effect either, because like when she turned back and did like a proper regeneration with the hands and everything, we were screaming. Oh my God.
Gorgeous. Then we have I'm the Doctor playing, of all songs, of one of the few callbacks to all themes we get in this episode. We get I'm the Doctor, which was fab. While she's hopping around the ship and they're both doing their techno babble.
It took me a second to realise it was that. I was like, wait, what is it?
Yeah.
And you were like, it's I'm the Doctor. And I was like, oh my God, it is I'm the Doctor. When she starts listing all the techno babble, is that real callback to Journey's End. But I just love when Donna, as the Dr. Donna, goes, oh yes!
Oh,
like
yes.
doing a doctor. Oh, it's just so good.
And then when she's dying, inverted commas, and it's you are beaten by the Dr. Donna. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Both because it was the Dr. Donna, but also that it was both of them together in action again. It was funny as well because my boyfriend after that, he was like, wait, but like, she wasn't dying. So what was she doing? It's like, why was she pretending to be dead? She wasn't dying. She didn't die and come back. She didn't die. So it was funny, that moment. But whatever. It was a fun fake out. I mean, the drama of it all, frankly.
I think we need to talk about the TARDIS.
This is the last major high for me. And it makes sense, right? We're at the end of the episode now. But the TARDIS, I mean, absolutely stunning. I am completely obsessed with that sense of space, and the way someone described it was like, it's like concept art they didn't have to dial back. It's like when you see those, this is what they wanted to do with it and this is what they ended up with, and it's just like it's concept art, like it's as ambitious as they wanted it to be, and they did it.
I love how it can all change colour. I love how big it is. I adore the like shape of the TARDIS console. One thing that I found a bit odd just for the design is that it's such a clean, some people say it's clinical space. I do think it'll get padded out with like, props and things, and the Doctor will have stuff there. But one thing I found so odd is that the actual TARDIS console itself is quite dirty. Like the actual buttons and panels and stuff. Have you noticed that?
I did.
The
I
actual
did see
panels
that.
are dirty,
Yeah,
but everything else is clean.
It's retained the kind of like stuck on knobs and bolts around the actual TARDIS and the kind of little
I just thought that was
gadgets.
a bit odd. Yeah, I don't know. But I loved it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I loved it. I can't wait to see it. I feel like we were almost a bit robbed of getting to see it properly fly because you get the, whoa, I've done it again with the coffee cup and it's suddenly bursting into fire. And like, I feel like it's almost like they wanted it to be Jodie's TARDIS and then needed a reason to destroy Jodie's TARDIS, but they didn't want to rebuild Jodie's TARDIS. So they didn't.
It would have made sense if they'd still had Jodie's TARDIS and that was the moment that we got another one. But yeah, I mean, so joyful. The moment that I keep coming back to and keep watching again and again. First of all, it's obviously David running around, finding his own route around the TARDIS, going, "It's amazing!" Yeah. And it's just like this real, like, childlike joy in this ancient eldritch creature of the Doctor running in circles around the TARDIS, just going like, "Wee, all the space!" It's kind of like really fun. And then, still a bit nippy. Oh, come on! Like, all right, it's gorgeous. Was so like. I'm not even sure which of them is the gay best friend at that moment. Like, they're both the gay best friend.
They're both the gay best friend.
And it wasn't even like the Doctor was playing gay at that point. It was almost like playing Jodie again for a little bit. Like, just like, wee! Like, it was that childishness that came out. And I really, really, really enjoyed that. And then I'm excited to see what we're going to get from it as well, because the behind the scenes was you're going to see the set do amazing things. They are all individually controlled LEDs all the way around the outside, so much so that they say in the commentary that those lights can spell out words, even if they want to. So, and there's a huge display screen in there as well that we've not seen in action yet, like a scanner on the wall. So who knows what we're going to get out of that as well. Now let's bring this party down. Let's be party poopers.
We've not got many lows. I think we've got a larger conversation later, which is sort of more mixed and neutrals, but we've got a couple lows.
We have, and these are things that you won't see on the official Doctor. No, I'm kidding. We have a few negatives. One that I think everyone openly laughed at, and we were all like, we just need to get through this bit. We just have to get through it. Was the opening prologue. I'd heard from the reviews that was how it opened. And I'm glad that I knew that was coming, because that was jarring. And I'm glad that I was almost like, okay, this is just for a bit and then we're past it. First of all, it's the fact that they didn't do both of them the same way. If they'd had the Doctor float in space and admittedly pretty lighting on him, a little weird in that he looked like a bit of like a pick your character screen. Yeah. And then they had like this quite jarring contrast of Donna kind of just like sat at the kitchen table and not lit in a very flattering way. And I guess maybe the contrast was meant to be like, the Doctor and his like stellar cosmic life. And then there's Donna sat at a very ordinary real world table. But I found it a bit jarring when it went between the two of them.
I think they would have wanted the Doctor in the TARDIS and Donna in her home, but they didn't have the previous TARDIS set, and they didn't want that to be the reveal of the new TARDIS, so they then were like, okay, we'll put them in space. But I agree with you that it did kind of look like a choose-your-own-character screen.
That's where the Doctor was waiting while the TARDIS was resetting. They were just like, he was just like pending reset. He was just floating in space. Waiting to be picked up.
Exactly. Well, look, at the viewing party, we were all a bit like, I don't know, I didn't like that. But then I was saying to someone, I was like, look, this isn't for us. Yeah. We know what's happened up till now. Half of us have just done the Dr. Donathon. This is for the casual viewer who were like, I liked David Tennant when he was on. I loved Catherine Tate. Maybe I will watch it, but I haven't watched it in a while. I don't really know what's going on. That was for them. And I do appreciate, much as it might be a bit jarring for us, that's not there for us. And so I'm completely willing to overlook that.
Maybe they could have done something that was like narrated and animated. Could have been really interesting. Like drawn, like it's a story of them together going throughout the stars. And it's a lot of work and it's very expensive to do that kind of work. So, that's a tall order. But I wonder if there was a different way of lighting it, setting it. It was not my favourite part.
I almost would have rather just had David Tennant and Catherine Tate sat on two director chairs being like, right, so here's what you need to know.
Something was a little off about that. And then I guess the other bit is the pacing really fell off. And I think it felt like, maybe the pacing is what I mean. It felt like the whole story was on fast forward. It felt like this was a 90-minute story at least that got squished. And it's not like there were plot points maybe missing, but that nothing got enough breathing room. So I think if they just had a bit more room, they could have like allowed some things a bit more room to sit and sink in, and it wouldn't have been so whiplash from, whoa, this place to the next place to the next place.
This story would have benefited from being a normal season's 2-part opener, in the same way that like The Witch's Familiar and The Magician's Apprentice were. In that, I think this is what an hour-long story would have benefited from being a 90-minute story.
For sure. 100% would have done. I was really surprised when they announced these to be like 3 60-minute specials. I was like, oh,
yeah,
like that's not very long to tell like 3 separate stories. And it
was like 3 movies, really.
Yeah, and it's interesting now that the next 2 weeks we don't have to do any of the setup now. Well, we have to do setup obviously because they arrive in a new place and there's a new conundrum, but as in we don't have to reintroduce these characters. We know the Doctor and Donna now, and we don't have to have them find each other again. We start with them stepping out the TARDIS doors.
It can be a bit of a cold open.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see like how that maybe gives the story a bit more room. We'll get onto this, but the resolution for the Meta Crisis was a big deal because it was the thing that we were told was like unresolvable. What was it, 15 years ago? A bit less than that?
Yeah.
And
about 15 years.
And it was a very quick resolution, which is fine.
Yeah.
Because it's Doctor Who.
We literally said about this on the podcast. We were like, whatever they're going to do to undo the Meta Crisis is going to be quick. We kind of knew it was going to be quick, and they were like, because we're not going to want to focus on the how and the why because we know it's going to happen. So we'd rather see what will happen afterwards. So I think we knew it was going to be quick. However, and I think we should probably dive into this section. I think that the reasoning of what they did left a lot of people confused and maybe with more questions for something that was such a quick resolution.
Yes, okay. And now, at this point in the episode, there's a major part that we haven't discussed, which is the role of Yasmin Finney as Rose. Rose Temple Noble? Or Rose Noble?
Rose Noble. Just Rose Noble.
Rose Noble. Oh, wow. And so we want to be like absolutely clear that we're really excited to see trans representation on screen, and we're really excited to see trans women in a leading role. And massive credit to Yasmin Finney for having one of her first jobs after Heartstopper be a leading role in Doctor Who is major. And we also want to say, like, we really think that I think the intentions were really good going into this about trying to make the right impression with trans representation on screen, and that behind the scenes, it feels like Russell T Davies has been really vocal as well about how he feels about these issues, and that's been really important to us as well as part of the queer community and the current climate that we're in for trans people at the moment and all the hostility they face.
Yeah, no, completely. I think that it is so important, like you said, in today's climate to have trans people in the forefront of stories, to have stories about trans people, cast with trans people in those roles. I'm so proud of Yasmin Finney playing the role of Rose Noble. It's weird not saying Rose Temple Noble, but Rose Noble. And I think that we're going to talk about it more, but it might be haphazardly done at times. I don't think it was ever going to be perfect. This is the first time Doctor Who has featured trans actors before, and it's not the first time that a trans character had a leading role in this kind of show. However, in Doctor Who, I think this is the first time that a trans actor has had a leading role and been such a forefront of the plot and like the conversation of being trans and being non-binary and pronouns and such, that I don't think it was ever going to be perfect. So much as we are going to talk about the reasons we didn't think it was perfect, I don't think that should take away from the importance of the fact that the conversation is being had and these characters are being given a spotlight, because I think that's so important. I think that we should only be seeing more of that going forward. And I'm so excited to see how Rose's character develops in the show.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's kind of the context going into it, I guess. And then the other acknowledgement is obviously to say that neither of us are trans or non-binary. So that is also like a place that we're coming from that we acknowledge. And so we're not going to come in here kind of waggling fingers and going, wow, the right way to do this is, because like we don't have that position. But like obviously it's important to us because this is a queer Doctor Who podcast. So what we've tried to do as much as we can, as well as like talk to our friends, some of whom are trans and non-binary, and take a good look as well online at like what people are saying and how people reacted to it, so we can get a good lay of the land to understand how other people felt about this episode too going into it.
I definitely saw a lot of people online saying, oh, I'm non-binary, for example, and I love being able to see some kind of representation myself. And then I've seen trans people speak about things that they thought might not have been done quite well, and how the good intentions, as they were good, might have been a bit misconstrued in the plot. And I think that that's an interesting conversation to be had, especially, like you said, on a platform like this Queer Doctor Who podcast.
Yeah. So there's a lot in here that I loved and I thought was really sweet. I think what an exciting, bold move to make Donna Noble like one of the all-time favourite characters in Doctor Who, the parent of a trans child, I think is just like such a cool choice. And I really love that they did that. And I think in the current climate as well, with the kind of representation we get and the kind of discussions we have that are so dehumanizing about trans people, it's just so cool that Doctor Who isn't just like including or casting someone who is trans, but also like wants to say something and say something positive and also like do something good in this space in terms of representation, I think is really, really heartwarming. And I think it means a lot given that there is such a big queer Doctor Who fan base. That they've tried to do it right is like a good thing in the first place. And Sylvia, also another icon on screen, embraces and loves her. Can you imagine if we had this come back and it was like, oh, by the way, like Sylvia's gender critical? You'd be like,
oh my god,
oh no! Like, it's like,
No,
yeah, like
oh
Sylvia's got a
God.
burner, and she's very Sylvia's on Mumsnet.
Sylvia would have been blocked on Wholala.
So Sylvia is also like trying to do her best, and I think they do a really nice part about, you know, like she's a little clumsy and she wants to say the right thing. She turns to Donna for like, how should I approach it? And am I doing the right thing? And that's really nice. A low here immediately for me is that we never actually learn, in her own words, how Rose identifies. Her mother and father identify her as their daughter. They refer to her by she, her. And at the end, it gets a little more complicated because there's a lot of reference to binary, non-binary, and there's an implication that Rose's identity is as a non-binary person rather than as a trans woman, which is a little confusing. Someone made the point online of saying, like, it's a shame that Rose isn't given the time in this episode to even throw in like a line about her own identity and her own pronouns when the Meep is given the chance to do it. And it was like, like that's a good point here. And it was almost like the line offered to Rose was about like scolding someone else for not asking about their pronouns rather than giving her the opportunity to say hers.
I feel like, having looked at what the consensus is from trans and non-binary people and seeing videos they've made online and talking on Twitter and stuff about it, the general consensus, which I do think I agree with, is that it feels like this is a story about trans people written by and for cis people. And I think it was probably majoritively written by, as we know, Rusty Davies wrote the episode, but creatively driven by cis people. And seeing what trans people are talking about the story, it feels like we should have been following Rose's character more as opposed to hearing about her character through other people. So there's a scene like you were talking about earlier with Donna and Sylvie in the kitchen, and that scene really did touch me because I think it is showing real positive representation for families of trans people. And like you said, Sylvia, she'll like muddle up sometimes and realize that's wrong and want to be doing the right thing and saying, you know, should I call her gorgeous? I never called her gorgeous before, and things like that. But in that moment, perhaps what would have been more beneficial is a scene following Rose, because, you know, she's just been dead named, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, in a moment. So I think maybe in that moment we should have been following Rose and seeing her even talking to the Meep, for example, about why they have shared experiences. They kind of, it's like the great unsaid with Rose. So she's saying to the Meep, like, oh, you know, I feel like I'm from a different planet sometimes and I can relate to you, and no, I'm not lonely, but this is how I feel. And it's all quite elusive and never very direct. And I feel like there are times where it would have benefited the story and the conversation about trans people if we actually were hearing it from Rose's perspective rather than from other people talking about her.
Someone said, which was really interesting, like, I think the episode should have started from Rose's point of view. First of all, it would have been a lovely parallel right back to 2005 to start from her point of view, but could also flesh out her character and the family dynamic. Imagine, shot of Earth, panned down to Rose hitting the alarm on her phone, shot of her eating breakfast as Donna complains to Sean about her temp job and how she's still the best temp in Chiswick. We see Rose as isolated and alone throughout her school day. We see her sketching a drawing of the Doctor. We see her at her play rehearsal. We see her at the market, putting out her creations, bickering with her mum. Then we pan over to the Doctor arriving. So there's something interesting, I think, within that as well. Like, I think this is it as well. We have a scene that we'll talk about with dead naming, and immediately after that experience happens, which is quite a traumatic thing, it pans to two cis characters describing it from their perspective instead. And of course it makes sense we do that, like, you know, narratively in the context of this Doctor Who plotline, like we want to spend a bit more time with Donna and Sylvia, but, you know, if we had more breathing room to look at this, like, what would be the perfect way of handling it? Like, you'd think you'd want to spend a bit more time understanding how that makes Rose feel and how she reacts to it.
Yeah, no, completely. And I think, like you're saying, there's the scene of dead naming earlier. It almost feels like it should come with a trigger warning, and there's a lot of trans people who've been saying that it's very triggering for them. But Russell was talking about it on the Doc 2 podcast along with Juno Dawson about how it felt necessary to include because it is a part of trans people's experiences. And June Dawson said something which I thought was really important. She said, I feel that it is important to show the lived reality of trans people. Rose is played by amazing trans actor Yasmin Finney from Heartstopper, as we know, and it happens, I think the important thing here is that the characters who misgender Rose aren't presented as aspirational characters. We see, and I think it's important that we see how upset if stoic Rose is and how it really upsets Donna. I think this is important. I think as a trans person and a writer, there is no point trying to sugar the pill. Trans people face transphobia.
Yeah.
And so I do think it was really important to show that scene of dead naming and show, just how defensive Donna is and how much she loves her daughter. But then I think from that, we should have then followed Rose and had her be able to show us as the audience how it affects her life rather than hear about it through her family.
I get that. I totally understand that. So, yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, there's no answer to what is the right way? Should it be in it? Should it not? Did it handle it perfectly? We're not the people who answer that question. Some people really disliked it. They said they felt it was disappointing that one of her first scenes features that as an introduction. And someone said something along the lines of this is sci-fi, anything can happen, all of time and space, why do I have to be represented as a trans person through dead naming in the second thing that I see of this character? Other people really like that realistic view, and it's look, you're just facing a difficult reality. This is it, staring it dead on, showing it how it is. And I did like the way that Russell described it in the sense that he said those boys on bikes, they're part of our audience. Those boys are watching.
Mm-hmm.
And when you present that as well to a young audience who watches Doctor Who, it's part of as well saying what behavior do we accept? What do we think is okay? What do we normalize? What do we not? What do we call out as, who are the villains in this story? And I think that's pretty interesting as well. So, it's a difficult point. It's a point that we want to talk about. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to the way that that's going to be handled. And as you say, it's within the context of a 1 hour story, of course.
Yeah. One thing that I do, again, want to really give credit for is I think that Russell, much as he's not a trans person telling this story, I think he really has truly given it thought. And so there are flaws in this story, but there's been a lot of thought into it. And I think that's a really, really insightful thought that you brought up of Russell saying that I think it's important to show these characters on screen of the boys on the bikes because people like them will be watching this.
Imagine, we were coming back now and we were in a slightly different social context and we wanted to say something about say gay people instead.
Yeah.
Would we want to necessarily sort of shelter a gay character from having these kind of experiences in their day-to-day life, in a climate a bit more like it was 20 years ago? Probably not. We probably also want to be realistic about what's there. I mean, what Russell is quite good at doing, I think, is writing a grounded world that kind of reflects the world we live in. And he's very good at those kind of believable social dynamics. And I think that helps root the world in something believable.
Yeah.
I understand why it's been done. A low for me, I think, is that there's confusion around identity and not allowing Rose the space to actually define herself or even anyone else kind of allude to what her identity actually is beyond kind of my daughter and she, her, is then that when we get to a pretty critical plot point, which is binary, non-binary, it was wait, hold on. What? So the whole we're binary, she's not. Now, I still don't know fully how I'm meant to interpret the scene. So many people have interpreted the scene in so many different ways. And this is where I think it's got complicated. And different people dislike this for all kinds of different reasons. And I think it's just about the pacing problem. They didn't have space to expand this point well enough. So it was confusing in that I think up until this point, we've assumed that Rose is a trans young woman. And now that's been conflated with her non-binary identity. That link, I think, with her then saying non-binary, people read that to be her almost light bulb moment. That's what I am. And I think then people went, oh, because then the solution was, just like the Doctor, kind of male and female and neither and both. And the link to the meta crisis was a bit unclear there. So it was almost oh, is her non-binary identity part of why she's able to hold the meta crisis safely? Is that part of why it didn't kill Donna?
Yeah, no, I've spoken to trans non-binary people about this since the show's been on, and they were saying that they really don't like there are so many amazing things that come with being trans, and they were saying, we can see, as she grows up, she discovers her creativity, for example. She's such a creative person, and there's so many positive things that come out through her transness, but they don't like the connotation, if this was the intention with the writing, that her transness or her non-binariness is coming through or has anything to do with the meta crisis. And it's this alien thing that's happened to Donna that has an influence on whether or not she's trans, because trans people are just ordinary people. They are ordinary, incredible people. Like the Rock says, there's no such thing as an ordinary person. But there's a weird muddying of the water in that. Is the plot saying that something to do with her non-binariness or her transness is something to do with the meta crisis? Is that a separate point? is it that, the Doctor is identifying as male there, Donna is identifying as female, and Rose is neither and both in everything? Like, it created like a weird tenuous link between whether or not she was saying I am non-binary or whether it's that I am not the binary. I think that's like the distinction that people are confused about there.
Some people have read this to mean that she is trans because of the meta-crisis. Like, oh, look at all the ways the meta-crisis has influenced her life. It's bled through into her memories. It influenced the shared, her own name. And some people read like, oh, so she's trans because of the meta-crisis. And I think that is the point that people really reject. Now, I don't think that was the intention. I think it's pure unrelated coincidence that her daughter is trans and has inherited part of the meta-crisis and all this. And then there's this line, I'm finally me. And I think that all added to an element of confusion. Some people were saying like, wait, does that mean that she was non-binary because of the meta-crisis? Now she has a different identity. And there was an element of confusion. I mean, it's, I think, reasonable to feel a little confused by these points.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I think the intention with the dialogue was truly to say we are binary in the mathematical sense. We are a binary in that we are two parts, like 1-2 binary. The Doctor, Donna, 2 binary. She is one part. She's meta-crisis on her own. She is non-binary. She is like a single system of one. I think that's what they meant, and I think non-binary was almost a bit of a pun.
Yeah, it felt like that because of the binary thing. They were like, "Oh, non-binary, we're not binary."
Binary.
Like, oh, if you did want to go for that, that's not. Oh, that's not.
I think that's what they were going for, because I don't think in that moment Rose is saying, "I'm non-binary," because I don't think that's what she's trying to say. It also doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I definitely think there were moments where, much as I love Russell's writing, I think that it was perhaps like, I don't know if clumsy is the word, but definitely confusing. And I think the scene earlier where the Doctor's talking to Meep and it assumes that they're he, and Rose sort of interrupts and makes that kind of jab like, oh, well, you're going to assume that they're a he. And there's that pronoun scene that I think it's important to include conversation about pronouns for sure. But someone online was saying that it almost felt like it was written in a way that someone would make fun of how a trans character would speak.
Yeah, it's like a parody of how Gen Z speaks. Of like,
yeah, exactly.
You're just going to assume it's a he.
Yeah.
And that clip, like, as you'd expect then, is the one that they've chosen to circulate with, hashtag RIP Doctor Who with no context.
Yeah, and I think then it shows again here that, like, if you're going to, like you said, make potentially a pun about, like, the binary from Journey's End and have them be non-binary, I think that there needs to be more thought as to the link between non-binary as an identity and then non-binary as in not binary, and make sure there's a clear distinction between the two if that was their intention. Because then later when they're releasing the meta-crisis, it very much seems like they're a unit rather than like two binaries and a non-binary unit, and it just makes it even more confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something that I really didn't like at the end of the episode, which I know that you have feelings about as well, is that when they are releasing the meta-crisis, they make a really weird jab at the Doctor, where earlier in the script they were saying about how the Doctor, is male and female and neither, and kind of walks the non-binary line, I guess, in that way. And Donna and Rose kind of make this weird jab again where they're like, oh, you'd never understand because you're a man. And they say about, oh, a male presenting Time Lord could never understand. You can just let it go. And I was talking to a friend of mine who's a cis woman the next day, and they were saying that they really didn't like how every time they reference Jodie's Doctor, they just call her woman. They're like, oh, I was a woman. Rather than saying maybe, oh, I was blonde, I was a northerner, I wore rainbows. And they, will call other doctors by the guy that wore blow ties or the one that was Scottish. And in a similar sense in this scene, they're like, well, you're a woman. Women, just let it go. Just let it go. We're not a man. We don't let it go. And I think that was maybe harmful in the way of, like, you're having this conversation earlier about the Doctor being male, female, neither, and then suddenly putting on this trope of, oh, well, male wouldn't understand. And I think that kind of undermines what was quite clever writing earlier in the episode.
Yeah, it was like a line that I was reluctant to criticize because I don't want to be the one who comes off to be the meninist. And I was like, listen.
Oh, like, God, no, I don't mean it in that respect.
No, and I don't think either of us do come across that way, because actually I think that this is a pretty, like, mainstream opinion on this line. I really don't think anyone was championing that line, and I don't think anyone I know would have wanted that line in there if they were given the choice. I think it was widely read to be needlessly patronizing and felt like a bit of a miss. I think there was a number of ways that people even, like, tried to correct the line, and they were like, even if you just said something a Time Lord would never understand with that kind of power, you can just let it go. Or
you're not human.
You wouldn't get it. You've never been good at letting things go. Wink, wink is another good one. Boom, perfect. Roast the Doctor. Show Donna's grown up. Meta crisis averted.
Do you think that your theory was right in Journey's End when the Doctor's like, I'm sorry, and Donna's like, no, please, no. Do you think she was about to go, no, I can just let it go. I can just let it go.
Exactly that. My theory that I really hoped they'd have was that, like, the Doctor Donna had already worked it out. And the no was a bit of a panic to, like, let me explain my thinking here. I think there might be an answer to this one. Or it was easily explained as, again, like, I'm a human Time Lord. I have a creative spark that you don't have. I can think about things in an abstract way that you can't. I don't know. I guess it wouldn't be such a sticking point if it wasn't, as I say, it was like a 15-year conundrum. It's like, it's not that deep, but also it's frustrating. And I think because it came minutes after the kind of like binary, non-binary confusion, it felt like one of the other small missteps in this episode that could have just been tweaked to make it a little bit more satisfying. And I think it's a blunder. I think this is the thing as well. These aren't such major missteps that we need to say, the era's cancelled. It's over. This is it.
God,
RTD
no,
done. RTD finished. But it deserves a conversation with a bit of nuance, I think. And that's what I think we lose entirely online. And I think it's worth having these conversations as well. And look, there'll be things that we'll have said that you'll totally disagree with, and like our ears are totally open to hearing like what you guys thought about this. And ultimately, like, you know, we both feel, I think, that good, positive trans representation is important, right?
It's an important dialogue to have, but having the conversation doesn't take away from the fact that I think the intentions are truly good from the creative side, and that whether or not there are going to be blunders and missteps along the way, putting trans people at the forefront of stories on shows like Doctor Who that are 60 years old, and being willing to have these kind of conversations about pronouns and being non-binary and gender identity and being trans at the forefront of such an iconic show can only be a good thing. And we need to just push for more stories, because then more trans people will be behind the scenes, more trans people will be writing these stories, and they'll only become more authentic and more exciting trans stories. That's what I want to see.
So overall, I mean, loved the episode. I mean, if anyone was counting there, you probably ran out of fingers, because we had about 14 different high points there. And I think 2 or 3 kind of like low mixed points for us. And I think that's a pretty good mixed bag. For me, this episode probably comes in at a 4-star. I'd say.
Yeah, I would say a 4-star. When they saw the 3-star rating for it was out, I was like, how dare it's going to be 5 out of 5. It wasn't a 5-star episode, but I think I would give it a solid 4.
Right, Sam, it's Wholala, so we've got to play one of my favourite games.
Oh, what is it? Go on, tell me.
Are you ready to play? Camp or Damp?
Camp or Damp! Woohoo! What? Yeah, I am more than ready. Hit me, baby.
Obsessed with gongs.
It's pretty camp. It's obsessed with gongs.
Do you think that's going to be a broader plot point? The woman in Abu Dhabi
who's obsessed with gongs? Maybe. A friend of ours who was at the viewing party the other day said that they have a friend whose mum is obsessed with gongs, and every Christmas he buys her something to do with gongs. And last year he bought her a mug that just said Happy Gonkmas. So he was like, "This is written for her, but she doesn't live in Abu Dhabi." It's pretty camp.
That was a fun moment. None of this is real.
That was camp. And John would be like, not real, it's on my leg.
Not real, it's clinging on my... Get off me, you space rat.
Oh, that was more camp. Space Rat was way more camp.
Get off me, you space rat.
And then, finally, all right, it's gorgeous.
That is camp. Like you said, oh my God, you can't tell which one's the gay best friend in that scene. It is amazing.
They're
it's
both gay best friend.
gorgeous. I love it. Very, very
love
camp.
it. Now, I haven't really got very many fun facts for you at all, apart from ones that you've kind of already heard throughout about physical sets. There being 3 Meep heads. A really good fact I'll chuck in, you may have seen doing the rounds on Twitter, which was said by Phil Collinson in this. They're now spending on a single episode on VFX what they used to spend on a whole 13, 14-part series. That is how expensive the VFX are now.
It's crazy. I wonder what this episode would have looked like if it was made in like 2008.
Cheap. I don't know if it would have been possible really in the same way. It would look like a Sarah Jane Adventures episode is what it would look like. My favourite shot as well, I don't know if you spotted it, the lift shot. Nothing's actually moving. No one's going in a lift in that shot. They did confirm. It's just the camera moving slightly down and there's someone lifting a bar over the camera. And there's another shot, I don't know if you caught,
funny.
where no one is actually moving, which is in the lorry, where they said that they had
I was wondering.
crew from around the set were basically just like rattling the sides. So they were sort of gently shaking.
Because you see them kind of like just stuttering like this,
Yeah,
and you're like,
everyone was fake wobbling in that, which is good.
Yeah.
Great fake wobbling.
Great fake wobbling. Well, I've got a couple of facts for you as well from the commentary. So they've confirmed that the boss, Meep's boss, we won't find out who that is during the anniversary specials, because as soon as we heard it, we both were like, oh my God, it's going to be the toy maker. And then I was like, why is the toy maker the Meep's boss? But David Tennant actually said during the commentary that he doesn't know the outcome, and he was told that he can enjoy it as a viewer. So we think that that's probably going to come potentially in Shooty season. Speaking of Shooty season, David Tennant also said on the commentary that the TARDIS interior that we now have for the 14th Doctor will be continued into the 15th Doctor's era. We won't be getting a new TARDIS for the 15th Doctor. On the commentary, he said, I went on set today, which was the day of recording the commentary episode, where Shooty and Millie were filming, and it was a beautiful crane shot sort of passing across it. So we will be having this TARDIS interior for a while, which I love.
I love it. I really like it. Next week, you can come back and you can enjoy Wild Blue Yonder with us. That is coming out in only 2 days after we post this.
God, I can't believe. Thick and fast, baby. What are we going to do when a full series drops? Oh my God.
I'm going to be sick and I'm going to be very tired. No, I'm super, super excited. This is actually the one that I'm most excited for, I think, because we've seen so little and it promises to be a bit dark and scary. And the fact we've not seen very much, I think is great going in blind. I've got no real expectations for what we're about to see. So, and as well, I think just getting the full hour, pretty much just Doctor and Donna together is pretty wonderful.
Well, this is the thing. I spent so much of this episode being like, oh, I can't wait for Donna to get her memories back because it'll be the Doctor and Donna. And to get that next week, I'm so excited. There's been, I don't want to say any spoilers, but there's been some TikToks going around of clips of this episode. And I'm very curious where the TARDIS has landed. That's all I'll say.
Do come back next week. And then the week after that, you know what's happening next week, Sam? We're getting Shooty Gatwa as the Doctor next week. Next week, Shooty Gatwa as the Doctor.
My golly, I can't believe it. Well, look, before then, we've got 2 whole weeks of David Tennant and Catherine Tate to enjoy in Doc 2, and we, as always, would love to hear from you. Please tweet us, message us, DM us on all of our platforms. We're on Twitter/X, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads, all of which at Wholala Pod. Please send us your thoughts about this episode and next week's episode, Wild Blue Yonder. You can also rewatch old episodes of the podcast on our YouTube channel at Wholala Pod.
And if you'd like to support the pod, please do follow us wherever you're listening. Apple Podcasts, whatever you're listening on. Spotify is most of you. And leave us a review if you enjoy the pod. We really appreciate it. And otherwise, have a very lovely week.
Yes, have a lovely week. Enjoy Wild Blue Yonder, and we will see you right back here on Wholala Pod next Thursday.
See you then, my darlings.
Goodbye.